All right, good morning. We'll talk a little bit about Man v Beast, a sword and monsters role-playing game that we just released. So Man v Beast was one of two RPGs I was working on before Dark Age of Man, before we started Dark Age of Man, and they were shelved. One in particular, For What the Heart Yearns, which is done. I just don't have art and I don't have um, the monster section done. And it is a traditional OSR, you know, for what that's worth, but it's the setup is you play teens cast off from your village to go out into the world and become a man or a woman, have the hero's journey, and then return home to become an adult and contribute to the community. That's the hero's journey in a nutshell. And that's been like I said, done for a long time, but I just shelved it, boom, and I don't know, does the world need another traditional, you know, 3-6 straight down OSR? So the setting is unique, and the concept that your teenagers cast forth, right? In a way, cast off from the village, don't come back until you figure it out, kind of thing. But it's I'm lukewarm about the I will say genre because it's fantasy, post-apocalyptic, but old kind of fantasy post-apocalyptic. You're a village separated from the dangers of the world, swords and stuff like that. So it's in that sense traditional. But I personally, um, I wrote it in good faith. I wrote it in the consciousness of what it was I wanted it to be, but I have zero interest in it to GM that particular thing, and I have little interest in playing a character in that particular thing. So it was not difficult to leave For What the Heart Yearns, although it's an interesting take with interesting features in character creation that's unique. So I may come back to it and maybe just change what the genre is or something. And then Man v Beast is really unique. Again, I do wave at the homage of the D20, but it's a roll under game. It's D20 only, static damages. It is one off. It is designed to be 60 to 90 minute one-offs, right? Episodic play. Your characters are already heroes. Imagine again 13th Warrior. We open up and we're already meeting the main characters and we're on a particular event, and in 90 minutes we're going to see their story, and then if they survive and we go, hey, that was fun, let's do it again in 2 weeks, then you come back and you lift the curtain on the same group of characters in a completely unique adventure, encounter, so to speak. It's designed with intent to be that there is no improvement in your characters, there's no leveling up. You define who you are. There's no class, there's no leveling, there's no treasure. So, again, what's the motivation? Well, the motivation is that you want to play a character in a role-playing game that is going to be high adventure. There will be an assumption of combat at some point, maybe not a lot, maybe a lot, lots a little, or maybe a little leading to the epic conclusion, right? Or maybe it's a night that the curtain opens with you standing at the mouth of Medusa's maze, and you were sent here by a local chieftain to do this, and we witness for 60 minutes our characters make it through the labyrinth trying to find Medusa, right? There's nothing wrong with role-playing games being this kind of focused intent, right? And there is zero, and I make this clear in the book. The session ends where the session ends. So if we run out of time, that's it. It ends there. If we're right smack in the middle of an epic melee with Medusa, and we literally run out of time, curtain falls, and that's it. And if we want to play again, we pick up with the same characters, and we assume they either fled or survived. We just don't know, how did they deal with Medusa? It's a loose end, and I make it clear multiple times in the book. Don't sweat loose ends. Don't sweat loose ends. We allow this game literally is okay to end in a cliffhanger that next time we pick up with these characters, we don't know how they escaped Medusa. We don't know if they defeated Medusa. We don't care. We're only concerned about the movie we're watching now. We're only concerned with the episode we're in now. So I make that clear. I also recommend in the book version, I have the recommendation. So there are a lot of GMs. They'll say, how can you guarantee we can finish a night 60 minutes to 90 minutes? We can't guarantee it. But again, one of the outs there is the session ends when the session ends. We don't concern ourselves with the outcome, right? If you can't time it where they're going to have the encounter with the chief, or they're going to have the encounter with the Medusa, or they may not even find the Medusa, whatever, because I'm not one to say you will meet Medusa in Act 3. Well, I am if I prep a session deliberately to be a 4-act session, and I've done this many times. I've shared many preparation of how I did Peace, for instance. I think the Peace game I prepped, but I set Peace up in acts, right, when I did act. So in the book, in the GM section, I talk about one way you can guarantee that they resolve the issue and not run out of time is a 3-act structure session. Act 1 is set up and exposition. We learn who the characters are. We set up the scene. We set up with some, we can show, don't tell, but it's exposition. Plot point 1. Act 2 is the actual conflict that leads up to the conflict, where we are going to have plot point 2, which is going to lead to Act 3, which is resolution. And we wrap it up with a resolution of the conflict, one way or another. And that's one way you can pretty much guarantee they're going to have that adventure. They're going to have that Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. We can wrap that up in 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever. But this assumes some things. The players are going to come to the table willing to accept the fact that this is not sandbox. This is not open world. You are not railroad in how you engage problems. Your decisions matter. Hey, you're in the jungle. This is what's happening. And what do you want to do? We can have that freedom. They're going to ultimately, though, their decisions matter and how they talk to the chief, or what they choose to do with the chief, etc. Well, there are some where you literally will introduce the setup. You'll introduce the conflict that hopefully they've all agreed, right, through the social contract. Oh, we're here to help the chief stop this reptile from coming in here. There's a killer man-eating crocodile that's or whatever, man-eating tiger that's harassing this local village, and while you're here, they've begged you to help because you're capable. And you'll investigate, this man-eating tiger, right? What the hell? Where is it? How does it strike? You'll spend Act 2 building to the conflict of, hopefully in Act 3, finding this man-eating lion, right? But it assumes a certain attitude about what we're doing with this role-playing game, right? That there will be a story to be told. The GM, it has intent, introducing you to the chief, introducing you to the scene, introducing you to the location, right? And then asking you to be your heroes in this event. And we play to have a good time. We play, you get to be role play, you get to, and obviously it's MvB. So you are, in a way, you're traveling monster slayers to some degree, right? But you're doing it over maybe vast oceans, into continents that you don't know, right? Into worlds where you may and may not encounter Atlantis. You may or may not find Mirror. It is set purposely to go, I can never say this name right, go to the era that redefined maybe the history of man, right? I can never say it. Anyway, it's in the book. Göbekli Tepe, right? I think that's how you say it. Anyway, which turns out might have been an epic metropolis of small villages. It was ancient, right? They're still stone and huts, but epic. And maybe Göbekli Tepe was just a religious area, or a ritualistic area, a church, maybe, where people would come, to pray, or come to hear the stories of the past and the projections of the future, right? If you're familiar at all with some of the stone carvings at that site in real life, they do actually talk about the Great Flood, which clearly every culture has the Great Flood myth, right? This is not a Christian thing. This is something epic that happened in mankind's genetic memories, so to speak, or in their oral traditions. Point is, whether they were localized floods that they thought were the end of the world, because again, you only know relatively to what your life is. So someone who lives on a small
island in the Pacific, there's a crack in the earth and a tidal wave wipes out their island, to them, that is the world, right? That might have been world ending in their eyes, although the rest of the world might not have actually felt the earthquake or the ensuing tidal wave that wiped out their little island. So you got to think that these are not, but these are cultures that would have politics, they would have religion, they would have, and then some cultures could be literally natives, on islands that are cannibals or etc. So sky's the limit, sword, sandals, bronze, right? We know it's not the Bronze Age, but there's nothing to say that there were not groups of civilization that were using metallurgy that had not figured out bronze or iron you could come across, right? So, but anyway, so the Man v Beast was an idea that I had a while back, and I was playing with non-traditional D20 gaming, but I was looking at using the D20. And kind of like Dark Age of Man, I was originally using a D10. You were going to roll over, reputation system. So I had been toying with three RPGs. One was a traditional OSR, roll 3 dice 6 straight down, pick your profession, your rank, or whatever. So for What the Heart Yearns, features three main choices. When you roll up your character, you have three main choices. So you're not really a class. You're picking, a yearning, you're picking a pathway, and you're picking a profession. So, and that, like I said, is done except for the monster portion of the book. And I haven't done it because it would be really pointless, because it would be, in many ways, it would be, how do I say this? It would be compatible. It would be system agnostic, so you can use any D20 monster manual for your lookups for this, right? There's a great free monster manual out there for the OSR. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's free and it's loaded with like 400 monsters that use HD and etc. And that's free, and that would be the only monster book you would need for that particular game. But again, my biggest beef with it, I shouldn't say it's a beef. I mean, I wanted to write it. I wanted it to be this, teenagers at 16 cast forth from the village. Don't come back until you have figured it out. And when you have, you'll know it, because you're going to return as people who, and you'll know it as a player because your character will achieve their yearning, and their yearning will tell you that you're free to go home, right? So you would have to earn, you would have through your campaign, because it's a campaign. Now that would be a campaign game. You are out there trying to achieve maturity by meeting your pathway or your yearning, right? Your yearning, your pathway, and that allows you to then say, "I'm ready to return home." Right? Think of Odysseus, right? The Odyssey. You go out to find your way, to prove your path, to do whatever it is you think you need to do, and then when it's time to come home as an adult and contribute to society, to family, to politics. You know, it's what college is, right? You're supposed to go out there and figure shit out and then contribute to the community, right? So you go out there and you do all the things that you couldn't do because you were at home under the yoke of your mother and your father, and your restrictions, and you go out there and you experiment, you figure it out, and you figure out what you think, and you figure out what you think, and you find out you don't know shit later, but you come back after you protest and you bitch and you whine and you complain, and then you realize, oh right, there's real life, I've got to pay the bills, and then you return to society, productive member of society, right? That's what college is. So for What the Heart Yearns is kind of like, well, what would you do if there was an ancient village and there's no college, right? Go figure it out. Come back when you're an adult. Come back when you, or don't, right? I mean, I do write in the book, there'll be the outcasts, because you can pick one of the choices is the, what are called the I can't even remember my own game. It's been a while. One of them is the unadorned, the unnamed, right? They don't have any mother. They don't have a mother or father. And so that particular group may find their way somewhere else. They may not want to come back. Any character can choose, once they meet their pathway or their yearning, to not go back, right? But in a campaign session, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to achieve that. So I don't dislike the concepts. I just don't want to GM it. I wouldn't want to GM my own game there, and I wouldn't want to play in that particular game. I'm 54. I've got other things I want to achieve or play or do when I sit down to play a game. Just some of it is just flat out have fun. And I revisited Man vs. Beast over the last month as I was going through some of my old stuff, whether it was sports games I was completing or old ideas that I had not fully finished toward my sports games, like boxing versions and things like that. But the point is,
And then enjoying the OSR so much lately with two different groups, same group, but two different games, and being reminded of how I really like that style of gaming, but I really like also storytelling. And I don't mean storytelling as a player sharing a narrative as we create the story. I mean as a GM setting the scene, setting the place their characters are in and what they're up to, and they get to saddle up as their characters and they get to embrace this ride that I'm going to put in front of them, right? It's again, it's not something I want to do all the time, but it's something I miss providing as a GM. And I rarely get as a player. Most games I play in or play to find out, they are open world sandbox, and we're just kind of going right. So it's a traditional dungeon crawl where we have a goal. We have a goal to literally get better, uh, unravel the mystery, right? So never forget, just because you're killing and getting treasure in an old school dungeon crawl, you're ultimately also hoping to unravel some mystery, hopefully along the way, or discover facts that make the world fascinating. But you are trying to get treasure, you're trying to get magic items, you're trying to get stronger, better, faster. You're trying to survive to the end and stand triumphant. Again, they say it's not about winning, but why else would you want to get through? Why would you want to finish Barrel Maze as this character that's leveled up and acquired equipment, and so there's some satisfaction in that, right? But and the chief the chief inspiration for this is the Ray Harryhausen films. It is the sense that in one evening we're going to watch this journey of Sinbad, right? Jason and the Argonauts. We're gonna have this in 90 minutes, 60 minutes, 80 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever. We're going to be Jason and his team, looking for the Golden Fleece, and that's the adventure, right? And I love that. That's something I've offered many times as a GM over the years. Um, and it's something I miss doing. One of the reasons I loved Barbarians and Basilisks is it's set up as the simple, 8-page rule book. Characters are heroes. They all have their own tables and their own kind of footprint in the world. They're the warrior, the barbarian, the wizard, the thief, right? And they all have their own tables and their own structure for combat. And the barbarian always goes first because he's the lead in the feature film. And Barbarians and Basilisks was one of the first games that said, "Hey, dude, let's play an adventure game night like it's a movie." That doesn't mean you have to actually have the trappings of film. You don't talk about zooming in. You don't have to. I actually ran a Barbarians and Basilisk game where I actually talked about the bird's eye view as the bird flew in, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of people don't want to be in a movie. They want to be characters in an adventure. So the other thing there is that actually has a leveling up. I mean, you can actually have your characters improve. A random table, which is cool, right? Oh, I get to improve, roll a random die and find out what your character gets randomly for their surviving the movie, right? Well, my game says we don't care. If your characters survive and we enjoy these characters and we're having a good time, and it's about combat, it's about going into that place, right? Your GM describing the maze, or your GM describing the cave, or describing the island, or describing the mass of cannibals who are hunting you, or and you're in the space and you're going to try to survive. They're going to try to achieve their task, but the task is not to get stronger. It's not to level up, and it's not to win the game. It is to be those characters in that one-off, that episode, that self-contained place. A lot of major games have done things like this, like Pathfinders. I think it was Adventure Nights. Pathfinder would offer Adventure Nights at your local game store. D&D would have encounter nights. So this is not unheard of, right? That you sit down knowing, hey, I'm going to get to play my character tonight, my group of friends, and the GM has got this thing that we're going to do, and there's some fun in that. There's some joy in that. For me, a lot of people don't like it, right? I do. I enjoy it as a player as much as I enjoy open sandbox. Um, However, the GM's got to be really good at supplying and getting me in the headspace, right? They're going to have to be really good at describing, because this is it. It isn't like I'm going to go right and pick the mountain over there. We are actually here to hunt a vampire. Then when I go through that door, I expect to have some choices in that small location that I can do. but I'm looking for the vampire. I'm looking to figure out the puzzle to find the vampire. But I want that to be pretty harrowing and pretty descriptive. And, we had this in Simba a little bit, right? Many of the sessions I created were a little, again, I had the act, I had kind of an act structure to some degree. Again, I don't think Dell likes that as much. Maybe many of the guys don't like that as much. I do as a GM, and I also like I like open world sandbox. Um, but I've been doing that locally, forever and ever and ever. But and Dark Age of Man, I'm supposed to know nothing. So you can see the direct Dark Age of Man directly says no. Yeah, there is no. You get to do a setup and an inciting incident, but then get the hell out of the way. It's the player's game. The players are going to kind of set. And then if I roll ogre, that ogre is going to show up as Dell's making cookies in his bakery, right? And that's when Dell's going to deal with the ogre as the ogre tears the top off his hut where he was just making bread, right, for the Lord. And Dell's little bread maker is now facing an ogre, right? Dark Age of Man is there's no way to know what the hell and when the hell, right? But I have run a lot of sessions where I like there to be this ride, right? And I've talked about it. I've talked about the traditional role. DM tells you everything, and then you ask questions. And but I like that. Obviously, I grew up doing much of that, and I enjoy that as a GM. I also discovered through getting so fed up with GMing that I retired twice. Once I came back online, I mean, I had retired from gaming, not because I wanted to, because I, working and stuff. But when I came back and I got fed up with GMing and came back again and said, I just don't want to GM anymore. And that led to Dark Age of Man. That led to me coming back a third time and saying to Dell, dude, I want to play and I would love to GM you, but I've got to do this differently. And that led to 2061. That led to all of that, that led to a naive narrator and the presenter seat, and it led to the system that is really Dark Age of Man. Dark Age of Man is really not a system that's complicated for the players. It's really a system to tell the GM you don't have to know anything, and make up your list and let's go. Let the players set the scene, and you get to in a way send an elephant rampaging through their perfect little world, so to speak, right? You're not necessarily adversarial, but something's going to come up on that list to say, oh, Dell wants to be a bread baker for Lord Washburn during the famine. Cool. Where are we going with this? And then, oh, I roll fungus. Oh, I'm going to tie fungus to his bread. And now Dell's made bread that he doesn't realize has got fungus, and he's poisoning everybody, right? That's fun. But so is saying, hey, I think of the Lone Wolf games I ran for Eloy and Jose years ago. Those were designed adventures, right? We took their characters, we placed them in the monastery, we placed them in that world that is Lone Wolf, and then they saddled up and they headed off to help a horse master to find out what was causing disease and poisoning his horses. And they had a reason to be there, and that's what they did. They were lawmen. That's what in Lone Wolf, your characters are monk lawmen. And so somebody's going to come to you saying, hey, we got a problem. We need you to be lawmen. We need you to be rangers, except instead of a 6-gun and a cowboy hat and a star, you were sword wielding lawmen. And so they went out to figure out who the hell's killing and stealing and poisoning horses. And the Blood and Bone games, those were all pre-prepared, very, very epic, high adventure. That every scene was planned, right? I mean, they were meant to be characters in a high adventure, amazing tale that was going to be resolved in one night, unless we just ran out of time. And I had a great time running those. The energy level was great fun. They had a chance to be their heroes, doing their thing, instead of just kind of wandering around, sometimes wandering around and wondering what next, right? I had fun doing that, and I still enjoy it. So Man v Beast is kind of, in a way, that type of thing. I'm making something that's purposely saying, oh, this isn't sandboxing. This isn't open world. You're gonna sit down and I'm going to pull the curtain, and we're going to have act 1, and then that's going to lead to act 2, and that's going to lead to act 3 resolution. And that kind of thing wraps up hopefully within 80 minutes, right? And we have fun. They like the characters. We come back to it again later if we want to, in a wholly different place, wholly different setting, wholly different episode.
Or we say, yeah, I'll make new characters. Let's start new characters somewhere. Or that was fun, but I didn't like it. Right? There should be role-playing games for all kinds of genres, all kinds of intent, involving players, involving strategy, involving tactics, involving shared narrative, storytelling. What's the impetus of your characters in this? What is the drama? If it's not combat, what is it? How do we activate it? How do we resolve it to tell toward telling what kind of story? Do the players then direct the telling of that tale, or does the GM tell that tale? Man versus beast, you'll declare your actions, you'll describe what you're doing, but I will describe the results of all of that. You won't describe how you kill them. I will tell you how you kill them. It's very traditional, right? The GM sets the table, but the assumption is your characters right here, right now on this mission, this episode, this thing. You're not wasting time looking for it. What are we looking for? Let's head over to that village, and you stumble across something that becomes the event, or wandering monsters become the event. That's great. Love it. Do it all the time. I've done it for years for my local group. What I mean is, right, you're setting out knowing that it's going to be inefficient and fun night designed for your characters to have this man versus beast kind of session, right? And you set up knowing your character's already that guy, right? And your character is what you designed them to be. Are they a missile weapon expert? Are they hammer and shield guys? Is a spear and whatever you are. You're in a world where being in a dangerous, hostile world where obviously being very good at combat is probably going to be more important to a world traveler that's caught in these moments. Doesn't mean you can't play the group's going to have the person who can decipher petroglyphs and can decipher runes and can communicate quickly with savages or natives or other cultures that they are not from, right? So you need the guy with intelligence and the guy with influence and the female with, whatever, same thing. I don't care, man or woman, doesn't make any difference. It's called man v beast, but we mean this anthropologically as humans versus animals. I don't mean this as men literally, but however, again, you might see it that way, so be it, right? But the point is, that's the inspiration. That was the goal. That's the thing. And of course, I didn't want to make this one of our epic books. I mean, Space Age of Man is going to be like Dark Age of Man. It's probably going to take us a long time. We have a set goal how we want to do this. We haven't discussed in detail exactly how we're going to make this. Um, I'm not still convinced that Dell and I are on the same page about the system we want to use. And that means that's going to affect character generation. But the sci-fi and the genre, that's all Dell's baby. Sci-fi is his bailiwick. It's his passion. He's done a lot of research, so it's really his world. It's his setting. It's his genre. I'm just going to be trying to put it all down, and I'm going to be trying to come up with a system that supports our naive narrator presenter seat still, because we want Space Age of Man to still have that freedom, right? So, but the point is that's going to be a long project, and it's going to have real artists, and it's going to be published in such a way that it's on Drive-Thru RPG and Lulu. And so this simple little 27-page homage to my favorite kind of fantasy, some of my favorite film and ideas of how I'd run sessions. I would run sessions very episodic, like they were heroes in a story or heroes in a movie. That didn't mean they were more rogue warrior, 13th warrior. They were more heroes that might not survive the movie, not superheroes that were going to waylay all the enemies. And you look at us tonight, we're triumphant. So that's the difference. I always viewed our one-offs as this moment in time for these heroes that may or may not survive, right? So anyway, that's where this comes from. I know a lot of people are like, wow, where did this come from? Well, that's where it comes from. I've been working on it. I am basically part-time employed. My full-time job is our game company. And so I'm working either playtesting games, sports games that I've designed, or I'm writing them, or I'm constantly
working on ideas for the stuff. I am working on a biplane World War I war game, tabletop war game that will be out of a book. You will use a book and a single D6 and maybe a set of playing cards, and you'll sit down solo to command a platoon of flyers in World War I. You know, that kind of thing, as well as all our my sports titles that I've finished. And then RPGs, again, I don't have a lot of desire to create lots of different RPGs, and we have our main system and our main ideas for Dark Age of Man, which I would love to see carried over into Space Age of Man. Outside of that, I've had these two games that I had shelved, and I decided to get Man versus Beast for the most part out there and shared with the world. And again, I shared it it's Creative Commons, share as you like. So people are free to use the system and make their own genre or tweak the system or whatever. So it's a passion. It's a favorite thing for me, and it's a passion piece for me. And didn't employ any editors, didn't retain Anthony services for line editing, didn't retain Brian for laying out the book. This is a personal thing, right? And hell, I don't think Dell even knew about it. Matter of fact, I realized when I released the video and I sent Dell the PDF, that's when it hit me. He may not even realize I had it, I was working on it. So I think it was as much a surprise to Dell, maybe, as it has been to some other individuals. I've had some private emails, so it's the impetus of this video is, answering. If I had some private emails asking these questions, then I kind of want to. I figure maybe there's a broader community that also has these questions. They're just not gonna ask, and they're not gonna. So maybe you wanted to know. So anyway, that is Man v Beast. That's the thought behind it. And again, I still have For What the Heart Yearns, for the most part, done. It's just missing a monster piece of the book, and of course, no art, etc. And I thought about releasing that as an actual OSR. Um, I've teased out a playtest of it with the guys a month or so ago. Lukewarm response. So I just don't think, a lot of the guys that I play with and that I'm in groups with, I think a lot of stuff is they want to play what they want to play, or they want to GM what they want to GM, and we only have so much time on this planet, so you have to prioritize. So when there's a lukewarm response, I tend to go, maybe maybe it's just not worth my time. Same with Man v Beast. I have 3 or 4 people that are interested in it, and we're going to try to set it up and play some, and we'll of course record it and share it when we do. But the reality is, anything new that isn't store bought or isn't made by a company they know, or a person they know, a lot of people wrinkle their nose at what is this, right? So it's like saying, listen, have you tried gula madatwa? What is that? Oh, it's a recipe dish I invented. What's in it? And you start listing the ingredients. People are like, oh, look, dude, no thanks. I'll just have a hamburger, right? That's the initial reaction to something that is brand new, so to speak. And I get it, right? I'm the same way, right? So it can happen. All right, everybody have a wonderful week. Bye.